Natalia, you are a mom as well as an educational activist. I wonder how you feel about the size of classes and whether it affects the ability of your kids to learn.
I'm not as concerned about class size. I'm more concerned about teacher quality, and I know oftentimes some of the best schools in the city are the most in-demand schools, and it's hard to reduce the class size without reducing access to some of the best, most seasoned educators that we have. So that's one of my great concerns. I'm also really concerned about the fact that children are going to have to end up traveling a lot more to get to schools once their class sizes are reduced and the capacity of those schools in highly demanded areas are reduced. I think that neighborhood schools are important, and my children both have benefited from attending to schools that are just a few blocks away and developed strong relationships. So I just want to make sure that all of that is preserved.
Leonie, how about that issue of
important.
Being able to get close to your school, live close to your school, or not have to travel a far distance?
I think that that's important, especially when kids are young. That every neighborhood school should be a good school that kids can attend. I was a member of the class size working group that the chancellor appointed, and one of our recommendations was that no child be assigned a school far from home with different guardrails depending on how old they were. And so to make sure that that happens, what we really need to do is build a lot more schools, especially in overcrowded neighborhoods. And unfortunately, what I've seen from this administration is that they are not focused on that. In fact, since the class size law was passed, the DOE cut $2.5 billion from new capacity in the capital plan. And though the city council has restored some of that, we are still think that we're far behind where we need to be.
Natalia, you're shaking your head yes.
Yes, but
we need more schools?
I think we need access to more schools. I think that we need to lift the charter cap. I think we need to bring school choice to New York City. And I think the market will correct itself. In some of the poorest neighborhoods, the parents are looking for charters and looking for more options, just like the wealthier neighborhoods have, and they just don't have it. And I think it's worked time and time again. And I think we should open up, the charters and let parents decide.
Leonie, shaking her head no.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because we're spending as a city more than $3 billion a year subsidizing charters. We are also the only district in the entire country that has to either provide space for charter schools in public school buildings or help pay for their rent. And so we owe, as a city, our first responsibility to the public school system to make sure that the students in the public schools have a sound basic education. And the more and more money that is diverted to the charter sector, the less and less money and resources and space we'll have for public school children.
So Natalia, you're very interested in your group on school policy regarding gender. I wonder if you could talk to me about that and what you want to see New York City schools do.
I want to see New York City schools involve parents every step of the way. I think we're heading towards a very dangerous precipice where parents are continually excluded from decisions. Children in schools are allowed to change their names and their pronouns, and parents are not being notified. And I think FERPA, which is the privacy law, is being subverted. It's really meant for parents to protect their children, not for it to be weaponized against parents by keeping secrets from them about their children.
So how should we change the policy?
I think it needs to be done at the legislative level. I think the parents need a real seat at the table with the DOE. I think they need to be talked to in real terms. I mean, we've introduced a toolkit that called Gender Toolkit that gives parents the glossary and doesn't chill conversation. It has to be welcoming of children with gender diversity and not, a closed-minded thing and not political. It really has to be about the evidence and brought to the parents.
Leonie, do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's important that parents be involved as much as possible in what's happening with their children. But in certain cases, when students are very, very clear that they do not want to share this information with their parents, especially older children, I think that some consideration must be made for that. FERPA actually requires parent notification and access to school records. a kid's pronouns or gender identification is not necessarily specified in school records, and so I'm not clear exactly how FERPA applies. But I do think that to the degree that it's helpful for kids and families and communication back and forth, there should be some discussion of these issues so that parents aren't kept completely in the dark.
So you believe that parents have to be involved? You want the Department of Education to change its policies?
Yes, and I also, from having spoken to administrators at schools, I happen to know that they agree with on these issues as well, and they do want, many of them do want parents to be involved, and sometimes their hands are being tied by these, you know, legal challenges to their authority as well. So I think that it's important for them to know as well and to be allowed to freely communicate with parents.
So as we approach the summer and the new school year, the Department of Education has unveiled a new plan to put more emphasis on how they teach math, so that math doesn't scare people, so that math relates to real life experiences. Is this a good thing for the Department of Education to do, to change the way they teach math?
So I have a couple of reservations about this. Number one, I don't know of any good research that backs this particular curriculum, illustrative math, that all high schools are going to have to use. And I don't know of any teachers that were specifically consulted in the choice of this curriculum. Moreover, I've talked to teachers who say there are topics that are not even covered in illustrative math that are covered on the Regents exams. And so there are big gaps in it. But the biggest objection that teachers have to the implementation of this program is that they are now being evaluated and will be evaluated next year on how rigidly and strictly they keep to the timetable and the topics presented in the curriculum. So they are not allowed, for example, to introduce new problem sets, even when their own students aren't understanding the material or diverge from this very, very rigid timetable. And one teacher said to me, whoever devised this system doesn't know anything about teaching, because you cannot be a good teacher and be at the same time so strictly regulated as to the pacing and the topics that you cover.
You have children. Are they afraid of math?
Well, they're girls, so that's always been an issue. I mean, I think that we've seen research that says as they get older, like I think after 4th grade, they start to develop some aversion. They have to work harder, so they get more insecure. But we've taken great care. I mean, unfortunately, we've had to pay for Russian School of Math to supplement my younger daughter's math classes, so she would feel, maybe not necessarily to teach her more, because I think they are actually getting a pretty good education in math, but also to help her develop the confidence and the fluency.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back.